Ciao and welcome back to my channel. A couple of weeks ago I started to doodle during the evening some 3D elements, and weirdly a lot of people asked me how I created those effects. So I decided to work on a couple of tutorials to explain it. This week we are modeling a coin that next week we will animate and we will create a loop. Let's start with the tutorial. For this tutorial we start deleting everything that we have in the scene, pressing A and X, and let me activate again the screencast keys. You should be able to see what I press here in the bottom, and I make it a little bit smaller. So we start importing an SVG image. So file, import SVG. You have different import data here. You can import different files like FBX that are 3D files. You can Collada, again 3D files, OBJ, and you can import SVG that are vector, but they can be imported as 3D data as well. So you open this window, you find your files, and you import the file you want, in this case Instagram. I prepared these files earlier as SVG using Affinity Designer, but you can use any kind of software, to be honest. In Affinity, for example, you have this edge, that's the edge of your canvas that you can delete, and you have the circle and the Instagram logo. So the first thing, we want to place this in the center. So you select the circle, you press Object, Set Origin, and you set the origin in the center of the mask surface, so in the center of the surface. Then you select the logo that you can see here in transparency because they overlap each other. You select the circle, you press Ctrl P, and you parent the object, and you keep the transformation. This means that if you move the object, it remains in the position where it was last time. Then, having just the circle selected because the other object is inside, you go into location and you set everything to 0. So now the center of the object and the center of the logo are in the same position. What you can do now is hiding the circle, selecting just the Instagram logo that has the origin here, as you can see, because there is this kind of pivot point, the orange pivot point. And again, you go Object, Set Origin, but in this case to 3D Cursor, that's the center, because the 3D Cursor was at 0, 0, 0 in the axis. So now both the objects have the origin in the center. After having done that, you can again hide the circle. You can add a cylinder. You can scale the cylinder down, and in this case you can unhide the circle because you're going to make the cylinder as big as the circle, more or less. Like this. It doesn't really need to be perfect. And then you scale on the Z axis to make it smaller. In this case, we can make it like this. You don't really need the circle anymore, so you can simply delete. And actually, before deleting the circle, you can hide the cylinder. You can select the Instagram logo. You press Alt P to unparent, and you keep the transformation, so it doesn't move from where it was. Now, if you delete the circle, the logo remains here. Again, you can unhide the cylinder, and you can move this one into this collection. You can delete the new collection that was created when you import a new object, and you can give some thickness to this object. You just need to go into this panel, that's the object data properties, and it's just for path. And into geometry, you can extrude, if I'm not wrong, it should be 0.1, 0.01. Yeah, 0.01 is the one that should work fine. Then you can take your cylinder again. You have your Instagram logo selected. You press GZ. You press G, Z. Why does it do that? It's not selected, that's the reason why. G, Z, and you move up until you can see it. So now it's placed on the top of this like medallion, this coin. And what you want to do is smoothing it. So the first thing is adding a bevel modifier to your object. As you can see, we scale the object without applying the scale. So you press Ctrl A and you apply the scale. So the modifier is applied. Basically, the scale is consistent 1, 1, 1 in each side. Then we diminish the amount of offset. We can go to let's see, 0.03. Let's see what happens. And we can increase the segments as well. Then what we want is also making sure that we don't see these steps. So object, shade, shade smooth, and we should be fine. As you can see, it looks quite round. The last thing that we want to do is making sure that this object is mirrored, reversed in here. What you can do is pressing, in this case, you can press Alt D to create a clone. So if you alter the first object, the second will be altered accordingly. You set the origin to the 3D cursor, so it's gonna rotate on the 3D cursor that's in the center, and we want this to rotate on the x-axis. So we press R, X 180. In this case, the object is like rotated on the other side because we rotate from the center, that's the 3D cursor. After doing that, all we have to do is coloring our medallion. So we go into the color panel, and when you import an SVG, it's already, it has a material applied. So I delete this material, I create new, and I call this white matte. I can set the roughness to 0.3. And I want to make sure that it's full white. The other thing is creating the material for our Instagram logo. So I already created a visualization of it in Affinity Designer, and I'm gonna go there to find out what colors I should use. So inside of Affinity, I created all of my logos, and I go into my Instagram logo. I find the first color, I take the hex code, I go back to Blender, I can see the colors in here, and I make sure that I have the shader editor open in this window. Now I select my circle, I apply a new material, and I can call Insta Matte. That's the material of Instagram. So into the diffuse, I want to create a gradient map. So I search for gradient, actually Shift A search, gradient texture. I connect the gradient texture, and as you can see, my object has instantly a quick gradient applied. The other thing that I want to do, and I use the node wrangler to do that, I press Ctrl T, or you can create this texture coordinate node connected to a mapping node connected to the gradient texture to control our gradient. What we want to do is, Shift A, and we put a converter color ramp. So we want to put a color ramp in between the gradient texture and the diffuse of our material, because we want to change the color of these. So we have 3 colors. One can be placed at 50, so 0.5. The first color, that's the one on the, because the color is set in this way, so it's purple in here. So we are going to slightly rotate on the z-axis these. It should be -45, and then we need, with the mapping node, to move the map slightly to make sure that it's properly assigned, because of course the mapping node moves the map on our object. Easing should be fine. Let's see. Yes, easing is a little bit better, and linear is, yeah. We can still move the map later. So this color is the one that we copied before, and it's this purple, and done. Now we need to arrange these in a way that we can see the 3 colors, and in this way we can slightly move the map on the z-axis after we rotated it. It's not perfect yet, so there are ways to increase this. We can scale this down slightly. Let's see what happens if we do 0.5, and we need to rearrange the map, and as you can see now we have the colors a lot more in line with what we want to create with this kind of ease. So I simply scaled it up, making it smaller, and the shade is a little bit larger. We can also go a little bit bigger, 0.4, and then we need to rearrange these, and in this way we have a nice shade. So yes, we have our logo in white and the background in here. And seeing that we didn't connect them yet, so I close the shader editor, and I can go into like this kind of visualization. I select the first logo, the second logo, and finally the medallion. I press Ctrl P, and actually Ctrl P, not Alt P, and I set parent to object, keep transformation, and notice that the object that I set parent to is the orange one, the light orange one. That's the last that I selected, the active element. So now these two are inside of these, and if I move these, they move together with the medallion. So now what you have to do is creating the medallion for the other social media logos you want to use in your animation. You already know the process, so I let you do that. I already prepared them for proceeding with the video. So here are the logos I want to use for the animation. I wanted to show you how to do Instagram because it's the one that has the shade. The other ones are plain colors, so they should be a lot easier to create. You just need to change the color in the diffuse node, the diffuse socket of the principal BDSF node. So now we want to create the floor where this medallion will disappear. So we can keep them visible. We create a new collection and we call this floor, and we can use one of these to create the hole in which they will enter. So the number of faces that we will have inside of the cylinder that creates this kind of hole will be equal to the sides of these cylinders. So we simply Shift D and we duplicate this one. We press M and we move into the floor. We hide this collection for now. This is the medallion, but we can change the name into floor. Then we can go into viewport shading. We go into edit mode. We select. Let's see if I can select properly. We select the bottom part. I need to reactivate the screencast keys for you. So again, I select the bottom part pressing Shift and Shift and Alt, and I can select the loop of the vertices. Then I press X and I delete the vertices. So I remain just with the top part. Now I want to make sure that this stays as a floor. So again, do you remember that I go to Object, Set Origins? I have using Q, I set the quick favorites. You just need to right click on those elements inside of the menu and assign to the quick favorites. And I do origin to the center of mass surface. So the origin is exactly in the center of the surface. And now all I have to do is moving this to 0.0. So this is exactly on the floor. Then into edit mode, I select everything and I extrude, but I leave it as it is. And then I scale the extrusion. Of course, when I extrude something, I create a face, an additional face. That's the one on the top. And as you can see, the face is, let me see if I can see it visible page. Yes, basically, I show you what I did. If you try to select the top face, it's not so easy because you select the extruded faces. So what you can do is pressing H to hide one of the faces. It still exists, it's just hidden. And then you press again where there was that face and you press, in this case, X, and you delete the faces. So then you press Alt H to unhide it, and now you remain just with the main face. Again, you can go into vertex selection, Alt Shift click, and and you can simply scale these faces. We can actually go quite far because we will just see this central part. Then you select in face selection the edges that makes this this circle in the center. You can actually inset them a little bit, so you have a little bit more geometry and you don't really have to worry about endgones and so on, but you need to make sure that you select all the circle. You can actually scale it a little bit up, so it's a little bit larger than your element. Maybe actually a bit smaller, so scale, and I scale it smaller. Yes. Then you can again hide your elements and you can extrude it down. It doesn't really matter if you keep the bottom part of these because it's not going to be visible at the end. So GZ, I make it a little bit longer, and then I press X and I delete the faces. So now we have this kind of hole. I would like also to smooth a little bit the edges. So I select the edges. Or actually I can apply a modifier, it doesn't really change too much. So I already have a bevel modifier here. The scale is quite right. I can increase the amount of bevel. As you can see, it becomes a little bit smoother. So this problem can be sorted out adding some geometry probably. So I can do Ctrl R and I add some geometry here. And as you can see, now the problem is sorted out. You just need to add some geometry. If you like the tutorial, please subscribe, share with your friends, and like the video. And don't forget to follow me also on Instagram. The link is below this video. Don't forget to come back next week, where in part 2 we will be animating the coin and the floor that we designed today. Ciao!